apologies for starting late. We were initially scheduled to start at 15 hours, but as you know, today our Deputy President, the Deputy President of the Republic, is also dealing with questions in the National Assembly, and we had seen that most of you were covering that session live, so we did not want to interrupt that important work of our comrades deployed in government, accounting to South Africans through the parliamentary platform. So we invited you today to share with you the outcomes of the National Working Committee meeting held on Monday, the 14th of March 2022. The National Working Committee of the African National Congress met on Monday, the 14th of March 2022 to conduct the current work of the ANC and carry out decisions and instructions of the National Executive Committee. Following their recent visit to the Deputy Secretary General, Comrade Jesse Duarte, the national officials reported to the NWC that the DSG was in good spirits and that the treatment was progressing well. They conveyed their appreciation to NWC for its support and well wishes. In line with the decision of the National Executive Committee, the National Working Committee decided that Comrade Gwen Ramokgopa, a member of the NEC and the NWC, should be assigned the responsibility of reinforcing the Treasurer General, Comrade Paul Mashatile, as he assists the DSG in conducting the work of the Secretary General's office. On the COVID-19 pandemic, containing the COVID-19 pandemic and ensuring the social economic well-being of South Africans remains a priority for the ANC and the government that it leads. President Ramaphosa updated the NWC on the work of the National Coronavirus Command Council. The NWC also received a report from the NEC Subcommittee on Education, Health, Science and Technology, making recommendations regarding the lifting of the national state of disaster and the introduction of vaccine mandates. These reports will be considered by the next sitting of the National Executive Committee. The NWC reiterated its call to all who live in South Africa to ensure that they are vaccinated and adhere to public health protocols designed to contain the COVID-19 pandemic. On Russia-Ukraine conflict, the NWC expressed appreciation for the efforts by President Ramaphosa to engage various parties to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It noted the ongoing discussions between Russia and Ukraine and reaffirmed the ANC's conviction that differences are best resolved through negotiation, dialogue, and compromise. In supporting calls for negotiation and dialogue, the NWC reaffirmed the ANC's commitment to human rights and condemned the human suffering inflicted on civilians by the conflict. It also expressed its concern regarding the plight of South African students in Ukraine affected by the conflict. Bbgm's regional and provincial conferences, the NWC received a detailed report from the NEC Subcommittee on Organizing and Campaigns regarding the state of organization and the holding of biennial branch general meetings, regional and provincial conferences. The ANC has over 4,400 branches across the length and breadth of South Africa. Currently, ANC members in these branches are engaged in the democratic process of electing branch executive committees and giving them mandates based on programs of action agreed upon in Bbgms. Of the ANC's 9 provinces, 8 are scheduled to hold provincial conferences during the course of the year. Eastern Cape, the province of the Eastern Cape, Free State, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northwest, and the Western Cape. Of the organization's 52 regions, 34 are due to hold regional conferences. You're also aware that this year is the year where we are holding our 55th National Conference of the African National Congress to elect members of the National Executive Committee and effectively agree on resolutions and programs that will drive the political life of the ANC over the next 5 years. The NWC reaffirmed the importance of the ANC branch as the basic unit of the organization. It emphasized the need for Bbgms to be used to engage in political discussions and the formulation of programs of action focused on addressing community concerns. The NWC called upon all branches to focus on tasks assigned to them by the ANC Constitution, which are to identify basic service needs and grievances of residents in the community, to enter into collaborative partnerships with civic, sports, cultural, religious, business, women and youth organizations in the community with a view to forming a common front to accelerate the delivery of basic services, to initiate the formation of street committees in urban areas to deepen democracy and to safeguard the personal security of residents, to foster trust and cross-cultural relations amongst residents in an endeavor to build stable non-racial and non-sexist communities, and to consider reports from ward councillors and make recommendations to councillors on basic service needs and other challenges of residents. Furthermore, the NWC called upon all NEC deployees to provinces to be actively involved in preparations for conferences and convening Bbgms. The NWC urged the provincial and national dispute resolution committees to ensure that all disputes are resolved timelessly and that final verification reports are signed off before conferences. The NWC warned that strict disciplinary action would be taken against any ANC member or staff member found guilty of manipulating organizational processes and defrauding the membership system. Where structures are dissolved, the NWC called for members of such structures to be engaged on the reasons for such action. The NWC condemned any forms of violence and ill discipline in the activities of ANC structures. It welcomed the intervention being made by the ANC national officials in the Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, and KwaZulu-Natal. It called on ANC structures to take disciplinary action against those who engage in violent and criminal behavior and for law enforcement agencies to investigate and prosecute in such instances. ANC Veterans League, the Women's League, and the Youth League, the NWC received reports on the state of the organization and preparations for the national conferences of the ANC Veterans League and Women's League, as well as the National Congress of the ANC Youth League. The NWC noted that the NEC of the ANC Women's League was elected in August of 2015 and that its 5-year term of office has expired. The NWC appointed a task team consisting of Comrade Thandi Modise, Nathi Mthethwa, Jenny Skriner, to consider the status of the ANC Women's League and to make recommendations to the NEC in this regard. Report of expert panel on July 2021 civil unrest. The NWC received a report from the NEC Subcommittee on Peace and Stability regarding the report on the expert of panel on the July 2021 civil unrest. The report will be presented to the next meeting of the NEC. Monitoring and Evaluation Local Government Barometer. The Monitoring and Evaluation Unit in the ANC Presidency reported to the NWC that work is underway to publish the second ANC Local Government Barometer at the end of March as part of ensuring that the ANC keeps to commitments made in the ANC Local Government Elections Manifesto. The barometer will also monitor whether ANC councillors are living up to the Ekurhuleni pledge to voters to do and to be better in working and accounting to communities. ANC Electoral Committee. The NWC received briefing on the work of the ANC Electoral Committee from its chairperson, Comrade Kgalema Motlanthe. Members of the Electoral Committee will serve as the Electoral Commission for the 55th National Conference. For the 55th National Elective Conference due to take place in December 2022. The committee is reviewing the current rules, procedures and guidelines for all elective conferences with a view to make recommendations to the NEC. The committee is also finalizing the processing of disputes and appeals arising from the selection of ANC candidates for the 2021 local government elections. The committee received allegations of serious transgressions and deliberate non-compliance with the rules and guidelines for candidate selection. Consistent with the undertaking given to communities and ANC structures, the NEC decided that the dispute resolution process should continue until all matters are satisfactorily resolved. By-elections could be triggered if some councillors are found to have been fraudulently nominated for registration with the IEC. You'd recall that this is a commitment we made to our structures. We are living up to that commitment. The Electoral Committee will present a final report to the next NEC. Municipal by-election. The NWC noted that municipal by-elections will take place in 4 wards in Ntsika Yetu, Ingobo, Dr. Pixley Kaseme, and Tabachoy municipalities in the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga on Wednesday, the 16th of March 2022. We must commend our communities once more. In the past by-elections, they've been going out in numbers again to affirm and endorse the African National Congress as their own leader in those respective wards. For that, we are grateful and thankful to those communities who continue to believe in us. The NWC calls upon residents of these wards to exercise their democratic right to vote and to give the ANC a mandate to represent them. Amendments to the Electoral Act. The NWC supported the broad approach encapsulated in the Electoral Amendment Bill to give effect to the judgment of the Constitutional Court ordering that provision should be made for independent candidates to be elected to the National Assembly and provincial legislatures. It supported proposals by the NEC Subcommittee on Legislation and Governance to strengthen various provisions of the bill to ensure maintenance of the current system of proportional representation, fairness, accessibility, and practical implementability of the electoral system. Parliamentary Letters. The NWC noted that Parliament is scheduled to debate and vote upon motions of no confidence in the President and Cabinet, respectively on Wednesday, the 30th of March 2022. The NWC expressed its confidence in President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Cabinet he leads. Task Team on Report of Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. The NWC received a progress report from NEC Task Team on the report of the Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture based on a detailed consideration of the reports made public so far. The task team will present the report to the next NEC, in which it will make recommendations regarding actions required to be taken by the executive, the legislature, and the ANC as an organization. The latter will include policy matters to be referred to the NEC subcommittees, changes in organizational policy, as well as referrals to the Integrity Committee. Furthermore, the task team will develop a discussion document to encourage engagement in the organization and society on the prevention of corruption and state capture. Passing of Mam Maria Raisi Max. The NWC noted with sadness the passing of Mam Maria Raisi Max, sister-in-law to the late J.B. Max. It conveys its condolences to her family and loved ones. The next meeting of the National Executive Committee of the ANC will take place on the 25th to the 27th of March 2022. You can hear that this was quite a robust National Working Committee meeting of the African National Congress. We did what we are empowered by the Constitution to do, which is to run the day-to-day activities of the African National Congress and make sure that we have got an organization. The work that has been done where our National Executive Committee members have been crisscrossing various provinces on weekends as a part of a launching pad of our Letsema program to make sure that we lay a firm foundation for the 2024 general elections continues to take place every weekend. And we are quite grateful of the support displayed by our own structures on the ground. They are coming en masse to support these activities. We must also commend our own government for hosting the first presidential Imbizo in 2022, visiting the province of the Northwest, giving the president of the country and his cabinet an opportunity to engage with communities. But again, according our communities, the space to be able to raise whatever challenges that they may face. Because a government that cares is one that takes communities along and one that ensures that the solutions it rolls out to solve problems of the people on the ground are customized and fit for purpose in line with the challenges that are found in those different communities. The work we saw is indeed the promise that we as the ANC have made, that in government we will ensure that we build strong structures that interact and engage with our people on the ground. We know that part of why this was not possible in the past was because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now that the social and economic space is beginning to open, we see our government also taking advantage of that, using that space to also engage with our own people on the ground. So that's our statement for the National Working Committee that we held this Monday. If members of the media have got questions, seeing that I'm alone, you might just shoot. Well, the Treasurer General would have been with me, however, he had other engagements to attend to.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mali. Well, my question is, did the NWC talk about the third part of the report, especially the posture taken by some members that are implicated? We know that the chairperson of the party taking the report and the review. The Deputy Minister also said that it sort of questioned the credibility of the report. Have you guys spoken about those postures of some members of the ANC?
You will understand that over time the ANC has come out to communicate its principled support for the Zondo Commission. once more, this National Working Committee reaffirmed that principled support. Of course, we have noted what individual members of the ANC that would have been mentioned in the report would have said. Of course, that is their own right. That does not change the position that the organization has taken as it relates to supporting the work of the Zondo Commission, where individuals exercise their rights and where such an exercise is provided for in law. Well, for as long as they are acting well within the parameters of the law, the ANC can never say to individuals, don't exercise your rights. At the very same token, the ANC can't say because its individual members are exercising their right, therefore it must change or alter or edit or review or revise the positions it has pronounced in public. A self-respecting organization like the African National Congress must at all times appear to be loyal to its own resolutions, stay on its own convictions at all material times, because we are an organization. If we are not loyal to our own resolutions, then how best are we going to be able to run organization? These decisions that we have communicated out in public are a product of conferences. They are resolutions taken at conferences. Now, the National Executive Committee of the ANC does not have powers to change resolutions of conference. When we hand over this organization to its rightful owners, the members, in December of this year, we must be able to account to them what we did to implement resolutions taken by them at the 54th National Conference. And those resolutions were expected to become a program that guides the work that we do over these 5 years. We've done exactly that. We now have got to go back and say to them, this is how we've implemented this. Look at how fast we are moving to even implement some of the resolutions. Just now, during the local government elections, we introduced the local government barometer. Already now, the presidency, which is the office of the president, the presidency, which is now dealing with monitoring, is now ready to table its second installment, which will then show us whether these councillors are staying on the pledge, the promise we made to our people during elections, that we're going to work and do better. Now so we're no longer going to leave things up until the end of the term. We have to make sure that continuously and consistently we monitor whether the programs we've put on the ground are working. Our own Letsema program, which now works as a launching pad for our elections work, is already being undertaken. This past weekend, Comrade Pemi, Comrade Colin, Comrade Derek, the comrades that our deployees in the Northern Cape were on the ground. The previous Monday, the president was in Mpumalanga. Many of our comrades had traversed throughout other provinces in the country. Comrade Notawe and them were in KwaZulu-Natal. Comrade Togo Didiza was in Limpopo, Peter Mokaba region. I'm just counting the ones I could think top of mind. But effectively, almost all members of the National Executive Committee are committing their time every weekend to the work of organization. And this is encouraging. We're not doing so because there's a national conference coming in December. We are doing so because of what we saw last November. If we do not make the ANC or place the ANC at the center of the work and life of our own communities, then we are going to see something that we are not waiting for, which we saw. Now in November, I mean, we are no longer occupying the seat of government in almost all the metros, with the exception of Nelson Mandela Bay and Buffalo City. We need to change that situation, and we can only reverse and change that situation if our structures are working in those communities on a daily basis. What is actually, if you see the statement of the NWC, it even goes on to reflect on what is expected of an ANC branch. An ANC branch must become the center of development in those communities. Branch activists of the ANC must be seized with the building of street committees, driving of civil society formations, and making sure that it helps people understand, appreciate, and know their rights, the things that they are entitled to get even from their own government. Or from any other development that happens in their own communities where they live. I'm sure I've clarified your question.
Maybe my question is, aren't you guys worried that since you're the ANC has a sentiment that it supported the state capture and it worked, now the report is out, some senior members within the ANC seem to be taking a certain posture. Is the party not?
Well, in Tlantla, I don't want to repeat what I said verbatim, but let me just give you bites nyan. Are about the rights jabona maybe give you a spade nabe. motho o na le ditokelo bjalo komiti khuduthamaga ya mošomo ya African National Congress e ka se tšeele batho ditokelo mola e le rena re ileng ra ba kgopela gore ge go na le pitšo go tšwa mo commissioneng ya Zondo ba o kgopela gore e tla o tle o re bolaboledi ka seo ka bangwe na le botsebi ka sona o ye bjalo go ka re o ile wa re go lebelela tokomane tše ba ntšhitšeng tša dipoelo tša mmereko wa bona wa kwa o sa kgotsofatše ke temana tše dingwe tše ba di tlhalosang o dumelletšwe go ya le ka melao ya Afrika Borwa gore o ka ya wa re no go ba bangwe gape ba molao re kgopela le dibee leihlo rena re le ba African National Congress sephetho sa rena se sa eme re supporta mošomo o o dia ke Zondo Commission ka baka la gore go supporteng ga Zondo Commission ke sephetho se se tšereng ke conference ya maloba ya ANC kua Nasrec boetapele bo ba African National Congress a bona tokelo ya go fetola di resolutions kapa dipoelo tše leng gore di tšere ke National Conference ya African National Congress ke na gore ka Sepedi ka ba ikoetse le bele nabedi inabile ke be ke no re tšela ke di boletšeng ka Seesimane ke di bušelletše gape ka Sepedi
We talked about the 50th National Conference, of course, it's all the ways, and it starts with the branches, the regions, and the provinces that you mentioned, so that they can come through to assist the progress, so that they can be that particular conference. Talk to us now about the pending process besides that. Do you perhaps have a venue currently? Is it also safe to say that there will no longer be an NGC? When is the policy conference as well? Because I would understand that ahead of that particular conference, you might want to have that when it is in your
yes,
that you must have the policy. But is it safe to say there will no longer be an NGC? And of course, when is the policy conference? And do you have a venue of this particular?
Yes. So what we have done is that we have combined the work of the policy conference and the NGC conference, collapsed them into one, and we are expecting that to happen, that policy conference to happen now in June, July. So we are also expecting it to take place in Gauteng. We have taken a principled decision which we communicated out to the public, that your gatherings, your policy conferences, and your NGC as well as the national conference should at least use Gauteng as the central place for their venue, and then rotate your January 8 year on year, because logistically and financially it's more. We know that taking gatherings of the ANC in provinces has got some semblance of creating activity and an economy, but what those were, January 8 is annually, so it makes sense to have it roving in provinces. But the national conference and this other one, there was that kind of a view. Of course, the NEC can review these decisions from time to time. So it will be in Gauteng, looking at various venues here. You have got Galaga, you have got Nasrec. You'll have to then say which one is most suitable, considering that in a venue, you need to keep a certain number. So you'll have to then say which one of these venues could allow us to keep the numbers we need in multiple venues to still be able to run a successful conference of the ANC, because conferences have got their own mood, they've got their own environment. There's a great sense of camaraderie in a conference. So if you want to try and keep your people in a central venue for as long as it allows you to fulfill all of the things that will make sure that you meet your social distancing, you have got sufficient ablution facilities, you have got proper networking. And by the way, committees dealing with the work of conference, your preparatory committees that are led by our Treasurer General have already been established. So that work is happening. Expectation is that as we go to our National Executive Committee meetings, we'll also be able to give updates. We've already had our first meeting of the prep committee. As we meet, we'll be giving the NEC feedback on what that work of Treasurer General is in terms of making sure that we are ready. But we can tell you now, throughout history, the national conference of the ANC doesn't get postponed. A date is set, and we all work towards that date. We have also ensured that we put the necessary machinery on the ground to assist provinces to convene their own provincial conferences. So our own organizing departments working hard to make sure that provinces have got what they need to be able to convene those BGMs. Because many of them are sitting. Some are expected to sit from April, others will be sitting in May, others in June. So in that order. The TG previously wrote a letter to provinces requesting that they try and sit most of their provincial conferences even before we could go to our policy conference, so that by the time we enter that space, then we know focus is on the national conference. Looks like you're all covered. Comrade de Klerk, are you covered for the first time? Okay, no. Thanks a lot, members of the media. You must carry yourself like this. I mean, it's very encouraging. Fewer questions, it means the statements of the ANC are much more clearer. They don't need a lot of questioning. So it's helpful. Okay. Thank you very much, members of the media. We will circulate the statement even through our own platforms, so that those of you with print and might want to get fuller context, it's even much easier. So I suggest we use our WhatsApp line to circulate, so that if there are things that we might want to just beef up for the understanding of our colleagues in the media, we do so. Okay, thanks a lot. What time? Okay, that's fine. Hello. Hey, Tada.